Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel Edmont Orange, and welcome to another ICONX build video. Today we have the ICONX Eiffel Tower. I've built the regular Eiffel Tower. It's time to give a stab at the ICONX Eiffel Tower. It's a little bit bigger, there's more detail. Being an ICONX model, they do tend to cram a lot more detail into those models. Let's go to the table, open this up, see what's inside, and put it together. Well, let's open up the ICONX Eiffel Tower. It's been a while since I built the Eiffel Tower. I built the Metal Earth one, but not this one. What do we have? Is it just one sheet? One big metal sheet? Kind of looks that way. Our usual tweezers and a piece of paper for the instructions. One piece of paper for the instructions. And this is being held down by a piece of tape, which is usually how that goes. This is kind of an older ICONX model. I'm just now getting around to building it. Carefully peel that off. And yes, it looks like we just have one metal sheet. Looks mostly simple, except I see a lot of possible details that might need to be folded up ever so painstakingly. Let's look at the instructions, shall we? Add the tweezers to my collection. And inside the instructions, let's open those up. They're kind of small for an ICONX. Very thin paper. The ICONX instructions are similar to Metal Earth instructions. Mostly similar, but laid out slightly different. You have the same ICONX and Metal Earth logo stuff at the top. You've got your 360 view with the web address you can go to if you want to see a completed version of the model. You have a QR code to get you the same. Scan that with a phone or tablet. Takes you to this address where you can see a 360 view. Line drawing of the model here. We have what is called to create the best connections, kind of information corner or section. We have a sample part with a notation on tabs, slots, and fold lines. Tabs go into slots, and fold lines are pre-scored or pre-marked or laser cut areas to make it easier to fold. Things aren't cut all the way through, just kind of scarred or engraved. And you've got your legends. When you see an E, it's pointing at an engraved side of the part. NE points at non-engraved or shiny side. Usually, there is sometimes the occasional confusion where NE is pointing at a side that appears to be engraved, but the engraving is actually fold lines, and that can get a little tricky, so be careful with that. I don't know if that's the case in this model. Attention point is trying to get your attention at something. Usually it's an alignment issue. It's usually trying to tell you, make sure this odd tab points in this direction or lines up with this slot, or this particular detail is here when you put the parts together. That's usually what it's talking about. Sometimes it has actual words to explain what they're trying to get your attention to. And of course, when I run into something like that, I will try to make a notation during the assembly. We have a blue circle and green triangle. These have been in the instructions since the beginning. The blue circle means to insert a tab and bend it or fold it 90 degrees. Green triangle means to insert a tab and twist it 90 degrees. The folded tabs are neater looking, usually more for the outside visible parts. The twisted tabs are more secure and are often preferred in parts that really need to be held in place, but not as clean looking. Assembly tips: if needed, slightly twist tabs to hold parts together, then untwist and bend them down for a nice finish. A tip that I've been given for quite a while now. Sometimes you run into parts that are just too shaky to fold once you've built more of the model. I mean, you twist them a little bit at first. Once you've built more of the model, untwist and fold them over for a cleaner look. Little section about tools. We'll talk more about tools in here in a second. And then we have a line drawing of our singular sheet, which I will pull out to compare. You'll notice this is just a line drawing of this with all the parts numbered, so that you can easily find all the parts in the sheet as you get to them in the assembly steps, which start over here on page 2 with step 1. We've got part 1. There's 4 part 1s. Find all 4 of them. Connect them in the corners with folded over tabs as seen here, or lightly twist the tabs for now until you get more of it together, and then you can fold them over. Part 2, shown here, attaches to this assembly here, and you end up with that. Then you jump down to step 2 and just follow the arrows. Possible sub-assemblies and assemblies putting things together. Step 3, much of the same. You may notice in later parts, once you're done with that, go to page 3 and continue following the flow chart. This one kind of circles around. You'll notice here there's step 3. This is referring to what you assembled in step 3. That is added in here in the assembly. Step 5 over here, step 6, step 7. This is not a very complicated model. Once you get to the end of step 7, you are done with your model. Now, this particular model doesn't have a lot of shaping to it. It looks pretty straightforward. A lot of things just connect together. So there's not any curving or shaping or making dome shapes or anything like that. So we'd probably be good with just our basic tools. A couple of pliers, flat nose and needle nose. Might not even need these. We got some clippers to clip the parts off the sheet nice and clean, and we've got an assortment of tweezers. There's some fine pointed tweezers. I've got a similar set that I've ground the tip down, which are better for grabbing tabs in tight areas. Wider flat set, and the tweezers, basically the same kind of tweezers that come in these models. This is a pair that I've been using for quite some time now. This is probably all the tools we're going to need, so let's start clipping parts and putting this together. For the first corner connection, I used my flat nose pliers to hold the part with the tab still while I bent the tab over, securing the two halves together. For the next corner, I tried to just go at it with all of my fingers, but still needed some help from tools. Part 3 and 4 are mirrors of each other and could possibly be interchanged. The only thing is that one side has engraving where the other side does not, so mixing them up will remove some detail from the model. I ran into some trouble here getting the upper tab to sit all the way in its slot. It seems like either the slot was not large enough or the two slots were not properly spaced to accommodate the space between the tabs. I first tried to force it into place, which resulted in applying so much pressure that the things bent out of shape. I removed the part, straightened out some things, and then opened up the slot a little with my pointed tweezers. This helped a little bit, but not as much as I would have liked. Little did I know that this was a sign of things to come.
had similar problems for the next part where the tabs had trouble sliding all the way into their slots. I'm continuing to have problems with the tabs and their slots, but I struggle on. In reality, I struggle quite a bit more than what is shown here. I edited a lot of that out. There are a few times where I thought I had the side parts on, but realized that I'd missed the slot and actually had put the tab in one of the spaces of the detail. It took me over 30 minutes to get to this point. Part 5 was its own challenge to attach because there are so many tabs to line up. The challenge was made worse by the problems I continue to have getting all the tabs into their slot. The instructions do not really indicate to do so, but it's fairly obvious that you need to bend the top edge of part 5 out just a few degrees. I should listen to my own advice. It helps to bend tabs so that they all point straight towards the next connection. These tabs were flared out a bit and would not line up with their slots. There are a couple of different orientations you can mount these side parts. One way allows a small engraving detail to face outward, which is what I did. As long as you place them all so the tab is pointing the same direction when you're facing that part, it will all work out as they chain together. Before you attach part 10 on top of the rails, be sure to attach this section to the lower section and secure those tabs. I overlooked that part and will have to undo some work later on. Now that the top part of the rails is attached, I went around and untwisted the tabs underneath and bent them over. Remember, however, that I missed a step here, and you will want to save this step until after you've attached the middle and bottom sections. I noticed that there are 2 part numbers for the 4 parts that make up the side of this upper tower. I gather that there was some kind of difference between the 2 of them, but did not see it at the time. They looked the same. I did make an effort to keep them separate and in correct place, but I realized later what the difference was and that I did mix up 2 of the parts. Part 12 has a tab on the top where part 11 does not. Part 12 with the tabs on top needs to be placed opposite each other, not next to each other, so that the top piece will attach. Once again, I am having trouble getting a tab in its slot. And now that the top section is all together, time to bend over all the tabs that I twisted. It is now that I'm realizing my first mistake. I cannot get to the tabs to twist them because of the top rail part. The flared bottom parts of the antenna sort of conflict with the location of the tabs and slots. A little finagling was required. I'm now realizing my second mistake. I cannot attach the top parts because the tabs are in the wrong spot. I will need to disassemble the top section a little to correct it. And now back to where I left off. And now that the model is all together, it's time to twist and fold over all of these little features.